Ready?
Yeah.
Go ahead and fire away.
Just talk about Posey working at safety.
Yep, we needed to double teach him and started to do it a little earlier in the spring. We've had some safeties banged up, but right now Fisher's got an ankle. We're not sure for the spring game how many reps he can go. Tried to take it light on him today. So we're really just getting thin at safety. It was probably something we should have done earlier. We would really had a chance to learn the position, because we want him to be a guy who can play corner or safety. Get our best 11 on the field. Heck, he may be one of those guys. But anyhow, we're a little thin for the spring game, and definitely need to get him wrapped up so he could go in and play safety on Saturday.
Demetrius situation.
Demetrius has got some off-the-field things he's got to clear up in his day-to-day, so he could be ready to roll, or he may not be there. So same thing, we got to have a plan.
Those off-the-field things going to play into his future, or?
Well, he has to clear them up. I mean, he has to clear these things up in order to get back out there, just day-to-day.
Are we expecting tomorrow at 8 going to split the defense about as evenly as you can?
No, what we did, Coach has got to split up as much as we can predict or project at this time, first units and second units on each side. So the offense and defense will be on separate sidelines, but within that organization, so we can get them and organize them and coach them as a staff. But we're going to try to divide them on those two sidelines, first units and second units, with the other guys being rotators on each unit. And I think the first team defense will be in white, and the first team offense will be in white. And we're going to go ones versus twos, and twos versus ones, as much as we possibly can early in the game. We feel like our fan base deserves somewhat entertaining scrimmage, and it's on TV, and we want it to be competitive, but we want it to be game-like in the field position movement and the rotation and substitution, those type of things. At the end of the day, each position coach selfishly is hoping each player gets anywhere from 15 to 30 reps. So we'll have to juggle that and make sure we sort of keep a count on the reps. But early on, we want to get them in a little game atmosphere, kind of see how the players handle it too.
Well, it'll be the first offense against the second defense, and the second defense against the first offense.
Right. And you'll see players mixed in, so to say that's exactly what it is, it'll be a little bit of exaggeration.
When it comes to that 2D, how much of it, especially on defense, do you feel like you've got kind of figured out right now? How much are you going to be really evaluating what happened Saturday to go forward with that?
I think Saturday's going to definitely have an impact, and we've got one more full-speed practice left and another T-shirts practice left, which won't probably decide anything of that nature, but the other practice will certainly. Every practice we play football with pads on full speed is an evaluation day. We feel like we're about 80%, I guess would be a good way to express it, about 80% on top of who we think our two deep will be. But we've got some newcomers that are going to come in and hopefully make an impact. We've got some guys that progress was hot and cold during the spring. We think they're good enough to do the job, but at this point enough they have not been consistent. And so we're not ready to put it in stone. But I think we've really learned a lot about our players, and I think that we have a kind of a projection, if you will, what we would say the two deep's going to have to be if we line up in spring practice.
What areas right now do you feel like specifically you feel really good about, and what areas are you really going to have to see some more of?
From a depth standpoint of just quality players competing with each other, I think our tackle spots and our linebacker spots and our corner spots would be the most solid. We're extremely thin at safety, and at defensive end right now we've got one natural pass rusher. Some of those guys have really got to make some progress. I think we've got some depth there, but Carter's had a good spring. He's a natural inside guy, but he's had a good spring at defensive end, but his forte is not on the edge. But he's been solid, so has Nosa. But we feel like right now, if we had to pinpoint something, we've got to develop some depth at safety. We've got to find out who the best two linebackers are and who the next best two are. There's plenty of competition, but it's been a little more gray than black and white on that. And then we've got to find some guys who can rush the passer on the edge.
Who do you expect to be limited tomorrow? Is there anybody you expect to not be able to dress out because of injury? Or
we're a little worried about Fisher. He got a tender ankle. Hopefully, we took some reps off of him today. Hopefully, he'll be full speed. We've got some guys, and I'm not gonna start calling names, we've got some guys that we've seen play on film in the SEC, and we think have had good spring practices, and their reps are gonna get trimmed tomorrow, unless we have bad luck with someone else getting hurt. But I don't think, from an injury standpoint, we're in pretty good shape defensively. You know, we lost Kamaya early in spring. That's probably been the most disappointing injury we've had to deal with on the defensive side of the ball, because it happened early, and he had basically no spring practice. And that's bad for him and bad for us, because as I said, defensive end was an area of concentration. We were looking for a guy who could rush the passer on the edge.
Ellis, you talked early on about the need for impact players, guys that do things you can't coach. Did Justin Garrett at least move toward becoming one of those guys?
Yeah, I don't want to exaggerate too much or not recognize some of the other really good progress that we've made in other areas and other players made. But probably the one brightest spot in the overall picture of personnel is we took him and another guy out of that linebacker corps and put them at the star backer to see if they were going to be able to get that job done. And Justin Garrett's been the best player we've had on defense. If you just measure all 11 or 12 full-speed practices we've had at this point, he's probably made as many impact plays and has played as well as any player on that side of the ball. So that was a very pleasant accomplishment. We made a personnel move. It worked. They don't always work. This one was the right move. Moved Javier out there. He wasn't as comfortable. I moved him back. I'm not so sure he wouldn't be one of my two starters inside, but he had the concussion in his first full-speed scrimmage, and it took 4 practices away from him, so he kind of took a step back. But I still think he's going to be right there in the mix for that job, for that will linebacker job. But those are two that immediately jump out at me. Those guys were moved, and then one was moved again, and it turned out to be, I think, the right moves.
Is Javi back full speed now?
He is.
Does he need to gain weight? Would you like to see him gain weight?
You know, he's a physically strong player. My issue with my linebackers right now, I'm not sure some of them aren't too heavy. And you take a pounding in that box in this conference, but I've always felt like you need 4 linebackers every game. I don't, you know, if I got a great one, you know, the first draft choice somewhere, I hope he does play 60 plays in a game. But frankly, right now, I'd rather they all play about 35 or 40 or less. And I think he's big enough, and strong enough, and physical enough, and durable enough. You know, he got a concussion for what happened to him. It was Garrett. Garrett hit him coming to the ball from the backside and hit him under the chin. So he's physical, he's tough, he tackles about as well as any linebacker I've got. I'm really not worried about his physical size. If he can get bigger, it's always better, as long as you don't lose the ability to change direction. I think sometimes these kids think they got to get big and they lose contact speed. And what I mean by that, they're not able to drop their hips and explode on contact. They lose a lot of flexion. So I don't want them to get too big. And you know, every kid's different, but we'll see.
What have you seen out of D4 this spring? You referenced the one natural pass rusher, of course.
D's had a good spring. I guess the most unusual thing he's had to do is play all techniques. You know, more of a flip-flop front in the past. He played what you'd call a weak side end as opposed to a strong end. Probably had not played as much 5 technique down on the tackle as we had him doing this spring, and he did good. He got better at it. We're playing left and right as a base alignment, and he likes to play on the left side. He looks like a prototypical right defensive end. When you think about it, you want that best pass rush over on the blind side, if you will. But he's more comfortable. His eyes, his stance, and everything, he feels a lot more comfortable on the left side of the box. So I think he's really had a good spring. I think in his mind, he's really had some good progress. I think he liked the change, and I think he's really taken to it pretty well.
No, earlier this spring, you said the cornerbacks were kind of the most pleasing position for you. Has that continued over these last week and a half, 2 weeks, and what do you expect tomorrow?
They've been good. I thought the second scrimmage we had 2 or 3 breakdowns with their eyes and their focus and their concentration, some bad mistakes that you don't want to happen. But if you go back to day 1, they've probably made the majority of our big plays on defense. We still got some good depth there. If we have to move Halsey, we'll still have some pretty good competition there. And but that probably has still been one of the brighter spots overall, that and Justin Garrett.
Ryan White has seemed to be out there a little more lately. Has he come on lately?
Yep, and that's what I was alluding to. We got some depth at safety on the corner. You know, Ryan's forte is experience. He's an older player and brings a lot of experience. It's a pretty even battle for that backup left corner, field corner, and he's right in the mix.
Can you talk about the inside guys that tackle, how they're coming along?
Yeah, I think they've had a good spring. You know, Blackson had the injury. It was kind of a freak injury. He got hit in PAT field goal block, but sometimes you get hit on the top of that head and you get those stingers. He missed a few practices, and then when he got back, they've asked us to limit some of his contact reps. So I don't know that he's had a good full spring. But you got Blackson, you got Whitaker. I think they, you know, players we feel like are proven, good players. You got Gabe. Gabe's had a good spring. Got some depth in there, got some competition, you know, and competition always helps. It makes people better. And again, hopefully that will be something in the fall. You cannot get through this, in this league, you cannot get through a good physical ball game with 2 tackles. Sometimes you can't get through it with 4. But we got some pretty good looking guys coming in. Ben Bradley's had a good spring. Junior college players normally struggle early, and he did. He's gotten in better condition, and he's playing with a little more mental toughness, handling assignments better, you know, the speed that coach has in the practice. I'm sure he's never been around that, so he was really way behind first week or so, but Ben's had a good spring. I think he's definitely going to be a player for us that we can count on. You know, on a given week, you got one beat up, he could be a starter. So I think we're deep there. I haven't seen any just wow dominating plays in there, but I think we've got a pretty good offensive line, and that's probably one of the reasons. But I like our tackles.
Is Tyler Nero making any progress?
He has, but you know, Tyler hurt his shoulder, and he's been out of practice, and then when he came back to practice, he's had limited contact.
Brian Niles?
Been pretty good. You know, I'd say those first 4 I named a little bit ahead of them, but they've all improved.
Teresi missed the other day. How's his spring been overall?
He did miss.
Yeah.
I should know that, but I didn't realize that. But you know, Teresi started out at corner. He didn't look natural out there. He's got the physical speed and all the things you think he can be a good corner. He didn't look natural, and we moved him into that star position, and he's played really well. Now he's still way behind Justin because he didn't have the number of reps, and I really think Justin's played extremely well. But if you got 2 guys there that you feel like can be impact players, that's a blessing. Both of them are playing about as well as any I've had over the last 6 or 8 years we've been in this system. They're playing about as well as any I've had.
Ellis, you mentioned last week that you were implementing that 3-down lineman package. How much more have you added this week, and where do you feel you are in implementing the full scheme?
What we tried to do with that, the offense wanted to have it on film, and we wanted to have it on film, you know, so we can teach off of it, and they wanted to make sure they got exposed to it. So it hadn't really been something where we've been trying to complete the package. We put in just a base read package out of it and put in about 3 or 4 little fire zones, and that's it. And we've probably now, I think through 3 practices, we've probably got about 45 reps, which is good. And hopefully we can teach off of that. Not concerned about running it in scrimmages. But I look at our personnel. There's some places where when we slide into it, we're really natural. There's some other spots where the players are really a little bit physically out of position. We put them in a technique that wouldn't be real good. So it is never going to be a major part of our defense, but it is going to be an important part of our defense. So we got enough of it that we can learn from it and try to improve on it.
Seems like we've seen Chris Davis and Jonathan Mency with the ones at corner for all spring. We're pretty confident with those guys in those spots.
Yep. And I would say there have been a day or a drill or a team period where maybe somebody had a little threat, you know, from Jones and Halsey, and get a little competition from Ryan White. But when you go from day 1 to now, there's no question those 2 have been the guys.
Back to Demetrius, because he's had so much experience the last 2 years. I mean, with whatever's going on with him right now, are you confident that he's going to be able to bounce back?
Yeah, we hope so, feel so. I mean, it's non-football, and just got to get it done. One of the things about an older player when he's not practicing is never good, but it's not like having a freshman out there that doesn't even know what you're doing, missing a lot of time. So, you know, hopefully we get all that cleared up and can get him back in here whenever we can.
Will Halsey's work at safety, if Demetrius comes back, will Halsey's work at safety be cut down as a result of that a little bit? Or?
Well, maybe, but we feel like until we see what comes in here in the fall, And we signed some pretty good players. Now, high school guys, you just don't want to ever say that a high school guy is going to be your answer. When you're in that shape, your depth chart's not good. But we've got some high school guys, and I'll be surprised if they don't jump in the 2D. But now Brandon King is a junior college player, and you sign a junior college player, you think he's got a chance to compete for a starting job, and if he doesn't win it, will still be on the playing field quite often. So we're putting a lot of confidence in Brandon King, obviously, coming in and putting some more depth at that position. When that happens, you know, maybe we've got some depth there that we just let Halsey stay where he is.
Couple more, okay?
Thank you.